Welcome everyone. I hope you are all safe and well. My name is Bobby Bonanno and I am president of the Fire Island Pines Historical Preservation Society. 10 years ago, a passion for history started right here. And like all good things, it has grown. Thank you to the Pines community for your support and belief that what we are doing is important work. Nobody can own history. It belongs to everyone. 40 years ago, change was in the air. One landmark was replacing another. The beloved Sandpiper Club and restaurant was sold, and in its place was what they were calling the Pavilion. As always, everyone in the Pines had an opinion. Let's welcome Andrew Kurtzman, former owner of the Pavilion and journalist, to take us on a Pavilion journey.
You really just blew the roof off the place. And was it a surprise to you that so many people showed up?
It was it was a surprise to everyone, really, because we were not expecting, that. We didn't know that the crowd would not go back to the Ice Palace, that they might not take a Saturday off. But, so as it turned out, that was like the first night of Pavilion being the place to be on Saturday night.
Right.
I happened to be lucky enough to be booked that night and gotten a chance to play for the crowd that night and had a wonderful night. Okay,
and anyone could answer this question, but again, my memory is a little hazy, was that people basically never went back to the Ice Palace. That was the night that kind of solidified the Pavilion as kind of the Saturday night place.
It seemed like after that the Ice Palace kind of flagged, and the Pavilion became like the preeminent Saturday night spot.
That's pretty. I mean, it's pretty amazing to think that all through the 70s and early 80s, everyone in the Pines would schlep through the meat rack to get to the Ice Palace in Cherry Grove.
Well, I took the water taxi.
Or few fortunate people have taken water taxi, but I mean that kind of pattern, that ritual was kind of a pain in the ass. So I guess at some point something's, a switch flipped in the head of people in the Pines. They're like, why are we going all the way to Cherry Grove? We've got this gorgeous new disco here. So Michael Fearman, are you with us here?
I don't know if Michael's here yet. I don't see him.
Okay.
I think he is.
Wait, no, he is.
Here.
I gotta mute him. Go ahead, Michael.
Where is the great Michael Fearman?
There's Michael.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
Hi.
Michael, tell us about when you first stepped foot in the Pavilion.
The first set foot in there. I guess it was 1980, and no doubt it was a Friday night, because Fridays, people forget, we're busy at the Pavilion that first year. It was only when, we would all go to see Roy Saturday night, and I do remember it being not very impressive. A white box with nothing in it but people. It could have been Robbie playing probably, or, I don't know. It's a vague-ish memory.
Okay. And so you thought it was kind of a plain white box. My memory is that there were actually projections at the time. There was,
There may well have been. Sure.
I have this vague memory that my first night, that there was a projection against the wall of the Kennedy assassination in the middle of kind of the dance experience. Am I crazy here? Marcia, can you back me up?
No.
Can we get more?
We're not hearing Marcia.
Let's see if she.
I got it, Michael.
You got it? Okay, great.
I got it. Wait.
Okay, I
There you
unmute it now?
Yeah, you're unmuted, Marcia. Go ahead.
Okay, hi, what was that, Andrew? Sorry.
Marcia, am I accurately remembering that there were projections at the Pavilion the first year or two, video projection?
There were, and Scott Fasson was the video projectionist. He was an extremely talented artist. In fact, if those of you were members of the Saint and you remember that wonderful Black Party poster with the circumcision and the needle and thread,
I think we all remember
that was Scott Fasson's artwork. Any case, yes, he was a video artist. There was lighting. Scott was also there the year that I was there. The first year of the lighting was done by Tommy Kazalka, though, and that system was rented. So when the owners asked me to do a system this fall of '80, I put in something that was permanently installed for until the building burned, I think.
Okay. And
Beautiful system it was.
Sorry, Michael?
We love that system.
Yes, and Michael Fearman was absolutely right.
Oh, yeah.
From the beginning, Friday nights were hot at the Pavilion. These boys came to the Pines, they wanted to get laid, and they got it. Saturday night, they went to the Grove to dance with family.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I like your T-shirt, Marcia. Sit up a bit.
Thank you. It's the original. It's an original.
Oh, that's the original. Yeah.
The original from
Very
1980.
Cool.
Wow.
There you go.
Awesome.
Amazing that the girls still fit in it.
The great Susan Morabito, are you with us?
Yes.
Greater than ever.
Stop. Hello.
Hey, Susan.
Hey, Susan.
How are you?
Hey, Sue.
Susan, what's your earliest Pavilion memory?
When did you start? I don't know that.
You know, I actually think my earliest memory was when I was with a partner in the Grove, and I just turned 20 years old, so that must have been in 1980. And we came over to the Pavilion, and they had the little box where you used to pay to get in. And being from Cleveland at the time, we went up to the box and we asked how much it was to get in. They said $25, and we were like, oh God, that's not going to happen. So, yeah, I think it was. But if you think about it, in some level, the price hasn't changed in the past 40 years. We've talked about that before.
25 too. Okay.
So anyway, that particular week, it was my birthday weekend. We were there to really do New York, go to Vinyl Mania, and do the Saint. So I never went to the Pavilion at that time. However, once I moved to New York, it was all about the Pavilion, and I knew that to get into the Saint, the Pavilion was the springboard. I also knew that all of New York went to the island in the summer. So of course, I wanted to play the Pavilion, and the first year that it was brought up, I refused because I didn't think I was ready. I was really afraid to play for a New York crowd. The New York crowds were the most discerning crowds, and if you fucked up, that was it. You would never play there again. So the following year, which was in 1989, was, I think, actually the first time I was in the Pavilion, and it was Bob Hired who hired me, and that's when he was doing his middle teens. So that was the first time I was in the Pavilion. I had a fabulous crowd. I was extremely nervous. And then I didn't play for a couple years. At some point, John White bought it. I don't remember the year. Michael will probably remember the year. And Michael Jorba and Michael Fearman encouraged John White to hire me, which then didn't take place till probably 92, 93. Something like that.
Quick question.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 93.
Yeah, probably 93, because that's when I started creating a name for myself in New York, which was easier.
I would say early on 93. I remember being there. I can remember exactly being there.
Mm-hmm.
Susan, quick question. Were you spinning in Cleveland when you came to that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in Cleveland is when I heard about the Saint. One of the guys I worked for in Cleveland went to the Saint, and he said, you have a talent. You can work at a club in New York called the Saint. And he told me it was an all-male membership club, and I was like, oh right, like they're going to hire a woman at an all-male membership club. Well, that's when he told me about Sharon White. And it was like, wow, if another woman can achieve that, well, so can I, which is the importance of women achieving things, anybody for that fact. So I was aware of the Saint, and of course, by knowing the Saint, then I knew the Pavilion. And the reason really why I moved to New York was the dream of playing for the New York crowds at the Saint.
Right.
And the Pavilion became in conjunction with that because they were one and the same. You know, the Saint closed, as you guys know, they closed in the summer because everybody was out on fire back in those days.
So let me just actually throw an open-ended question to all the DJs here. What was it like to play the Pavilion? What was it like, Robbie?
It was as good as it gets, frankly. And at that point, you know, I was kind of playing the best gigs in New York, and so this was like a great gig, but also like in a wonderful location that not only did you have a terrific audience, but you had this wonderful like beachy vibe. This kind of like really everyone is relaxed, everyone's feeling comfortable and at ease, and just, you know, everyone kind of knows one another, like we were talking about earlier. It's kind of a clan or a tribe. It's a cliche, but
right.
A very familiar crowd, and it was wonderful. Frankly, it was wonderful. I mean, I can't think of a bad night there. I mean, that I was really feeling disconnected to the crowd.
And wait, Michael, I just want to add one thing. And Robbie, it also was a resume thing, you know, to play the Pavilion and have that on your resume.
Without a doubt.
Got you into New York clubs.
Oh, absolutely. No question. Yeah.
I think it was the top of the resume under the Saint.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. Michael Fearman, what would you like to play the Pavilion?
Well, I mean, you know, a quick, brief thing. I mean, how I started there was, you know, by this little miracle, I got a job at the Underground because John Siglia was sick one night. The manager, and I'd never played anywhere. And this was in 1981. And Robbie always played Fridays. And I'm hanging out in the booth with Robbie. And Robbie, what was his name? The manager?
Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy. So Rudy says, John's sick. You want to play tomorrow night? And I'm like, guess so. And anyway, so I, you know, my career took off, and they said to me, do you want to play Wednesday? We'll let you, this is May of '82. Right after I played like my little, they had the 7 weeks in a row DJs, you know, they were going to pick one for the fall. I had an audition for the same, but anyway, they hired me because of that. But then, so they said, well, we'll let you try out for Wednesday nights at the Pavilion, which sounds terrible, but it wasn't. I mean, the thing is I remember my first night, terrified, obviously, and I played Knight Rider, which did not go over very well. And I'm sure but the best part, though, this is good for the conoscenti. So afterwards, Hector. Who raise your hand if you remember Hector? I think we all do. Okay, right. So the morning party afterwards. So go to Hector's house, and you know, I was, you know, nothing. But everybody treated me so warmly, so sweet, has a joint around. No, don't bother to mention that it's a dust joint. And there I was, and literally reduced to a pile of slime. And I remember like sliding across the floor, just trying to get away from everything. But I guess the night went well. Anyway, so I played every Wednesday that summer, and you know, I mean, in those days, even that was the slowest night of the week, but it was busy. Now, so yeah, and I, you know, obviously then I you know, became a little more established.
Quick question: was it open 7 nights a week or 5 nights a week back then?
Can you hear me? The only thing I can say is when Andrew, when I was playing there in '82, Andrew did a little story in his newspaper, And he took a photo of me in front of the Pavilion before my night, and it said, I still have the photo, it said, dancing Monday through Thursday from 11 till 5 a.m. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, they were promoting, you know, like DJ by name, I guess, so to speak, but it said dancing. So you could go and out dancing at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday night back in those days in the Pavilion, and people would be there, and the light person would be there, and we could. So that's what I recall from that, at least.
Yeah, I mean, I learned how to start learning how to play a down trip that summer, really, because of course in the underground we didn't play one. And so that helped me a lot when I started playing at the St. regularly in September of '82, because I had a full summer of playing the down trip. And I just thought of that. That was you know, probably another stroke of luck. I've had many.
Okay, Mike Trillo, Bob Howard wanted to chime in. I think he's muted right now.
Yeah, let me put you back on.
Bob, when did, as he tries to connect your...
Yeah, he's connected.
Bob,
I'm on now. No, I didn't have anything specific to say about anything much except to comment on what people were commenting on, and it's gone by now, so just carry on.
Bob, tell us, when you entered the picture as manager, let's see, what happened there, and tell us about that story.
Well, what happened there was that four of the six partners had died, and Steve Goodfriend and Charles DeRohan were the only surviving partners at that point. And Steve was ill, and Charles was old and tired at that point and really didn't want to do it anymore. And as a younger person in those days who went out every night of the week, I kind of thought that I knew what to do with the place, and I had become friendly with Charles. And he and I had a number of meetings. Things had gone strange over at the Blue Whale. It had become like a place for straight people to come and kind of like have fights among each other. Gay people were no longer going to tea. AIDS had decimated the community, and we were in trouble. And people were not going out dancing either. So here was this dance palace that was now open one night a week after having been open 7 nights a week and having been filled probably for 4 of those 7 nights. And when I say filled, I mean you could not fit a sheet of paper between the belly of one man and the butt of another. You know, they were dancing together. So in any event, Charles and I came upon a deal where I leased the Pavilion from him, and in 1987, 1988, and there were 2 really wonderful seasons, and I think everybody will pretty much agree with that. It became more like a community event. I moved dancing into an earlier portion of the evening. People really were not into going out late anymore. It was health reasons and all of that. And tea became the big event. I think the biggest night that we had was the second year of July 4th, which was 1988. And we used, you clock people with like a little device as they go in. And there were 1,500 admits that evening. That's a lot of people in and out of the Pavilion. You can't fit 1,500 people there at any one time, but over the course of the time that we were open, that's a big door, Andrew, if you know what I mean.
I do.
Yes. And I don't need to say any more because I don't want to end up like Steve Rubell, who's dead. I'll end up like him eventually. But in those days, there were no credit cards. It was the cash door and it was the cash bar. And the machines that they used were quite wonderful. They had these cranks on them. And that was it. That was the only record of what there was to crank it and say that's what it was. And they took the money. Bartender got a big tip. The bartenders all went to Acapulco in the winter. They had a wonderful life. So there were 2 really great years. Is Alex Akira on? I know she was invited, and I thought she was going to respond. But Alex and Mel were great star bartenders at the entry bar, which was a 50-foot long bar. I mean, it was the most incredible thing. And the 2 of them did a ballet there and managed to serve everybody who came in from about 11 p.m. until dawn and past. We went well into the light. It was not a pretty sight very often when the light came up, but that's what we did in those days. And that went on for 2 years, and then I was in contract to buy the place finally from Charles, who was willing to let it go. And we were at the 11th hour of the negotiations, and Charles said to me that he had a better offer. And I said, Charles, if you have a better offer than the deal that I thought we had, you should really take it. it never occurred to me that it was John White himself, because I had killed his baby at that low T thing, and that was the story with that. That is how John White came to own the Pavilion and everything else.
And everything else.
And what year, Bob? What year was it that John White bought the Pavilion?
89.
Well, I was there 87, 88. John White, it was 89. It was the first year of John.
89. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Richard Tucker, the
Get to Richard.
great light man, Richard Tucker, has joined us and would like to chime in.
Yeah, I'm gonna unmute him. Yeah, Richard's here. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself, Richard.
Okay. Hello, everyone.
Hey, Richard.
Hi, Richard. Hi, Rich.
Yeah, I remember this entire summer of 1984. I got out there the end of March, set up all the lighting with Mark Ackerman. We were out there. And I was out there for the entire summer until September, only coming back to the city twice. So you can imagine what shape I was in. But on Wednesday nights, I used to do lights and stuff. On Wednesday nights, I used to pull a Barbra Streisand and DJ and do lights.
There you
No
go.
light man, it was just me.
Oh, Richard's a teacher. There you go. I didn't know that.
Andrew, I want to go back to answer a question you asked earlier about what it was like. And Michael, one of the words he used was exactly the only word that comes to mind when you asked what it was like, and that was tribal. There was a unity on the dance floor that I don't think has been experienced since, period, in the story.
Yeah.
Totally true.
It was one big family, and it was really quite amazing.
Right.
And we all felt it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We were the same people who were in town at studio. We were the same people who were at the Saints, especially at the Saints, and the same people who were at the Pavilion. And
Right.
sometimes you did not know the name of the person you'd been dancing next to for a year or so, but you danced with him and you had a great time with him, and he was your friend somehow.
Right. Right.
It had a very 12 Westy feel kind of about it.
Yes.
Very. Yeah, 12
Yeah.
West was kind of the beginning of that tribal thing. I mean,
Right,
because
right.
it just wasn't the construction of the amphitheater and all of that. It was very kind of like, it was like a big Greek drama.
That's
Okay.
Let me say something about Bob's staff, if I may. You know, there was a lot of people who worked behind the bars and doormen of the Pavilion, but Bob Howard had the best staff of I mean, you had David Cameron, Thomas Tonk, little what's-his-face, and Felix, of course.
Felix, Thomas, I was showing pictures of those guys to Nate earlier.
I mean, Bob, it was, I mean, as much as I loved working during the John White years, and, you know, maybe those were, you know, because the late night dancing had come back by then, and so in some ways the 90s was, I mean, it was my favorite time to play there. No offense to Bob, you know.
No, I understand what you're saying.
But the staff you assembled by far was my favorite.
Okay.
They were really quite wonderful, and it was like a team effort. And
It
like
really
family.
was.
They were such company men that, I mean, like all of the DJs, like it was one big family. I mean,
We all cared about it.
Sabala did the lighting. You know,
Yeah.
Richard Tucker was there. You know, with Richard Sabala, and it was an unbelievable experience. It was one of the great experiences.
And we had Michael Stein.
Yes.
And Michael
Nobody
Stein
had
assisting
to
absolutely everyone.
Don't forget about Michael.
At all times.
We know about that.
Let's move on.
He was nuts, but we loved him.
Susan Morbido.
Oh, Michael.
Susan, so now we're in the early 90s, and now we're kind of transitioning out of disco, right? Or we had made a transition out of disco. And what were we transitioning towards? I mean, the larger culture had kind of moved on. So, you know, people like me and the Pines didn't want to move on past disco. So how much pressure were you getting kind of from, you know, on one hand, people like me who wanted it, you know, wanted that Fire Island sound to last forever, versus the people who are really listening to a really different kind of dance music back in the city?
There was a lot of pressure. I can't remember the year. Maybe it was 96, but it was just such a horrible year because, and I could be off base with this, but I felt that you had a whole generation out there who looked at disco as like AIDS music. And you had a younger generation that just didn't want anything to do with that. And you felt that. You felt people like John Francis, that whole crowd who wanted more of the old school Saint music. And then you had a fresh batch of cookies that were coming out of the oven every season prior to that. And they wanted their own sound, which is understandable.
But let me say that, let me ask you a question, Susan. I think that, and you and I talked about this a lot in those days, especially 95, 96. I mean, I think we did synthesize what was maybe what was going on into the city into that Fire Island vibe. I mean,
I agree that we did do that, Michael, but the feeling and the pressure was there. So if you didn't give one crowd what they wanted, I always felt you had another crowd that bitched. Now, maybe at that point in my career too, which I was a lot younger, a lot less experienced, I let that eat me up a little bit. And I'll never forget one night you were playing, Michael, and you were playing Move Your Body by Elevation, which was a huge song that song. Everybody was on the dance floor having a great time, and all of a sudden you slammed into Like Only You Can, Thelma Houston, Don't Leave Me This Way. And all of a sudden there is this massive shift on the dance floor. And you see, you know, the more mature crowd, which back then was like 35, you know, versus 25, getting on the dance floor. And another crowd getting off, and I'm one of the people who get on the dance floor, and I walked past these two guys, and I heard one guy saying to his friend, why the fuck is he playing this? They're all dead. And it was like, why the fuck is he playing this? They're all dead. I don't know if somebody there said what. Sorry to repeat that. And I was just devastated by that comment. Now, I just felt that so many people felt that way. And the reality is I don't know how many people felt that way. You know, you always have percentages in these things. What is the percentage of who feels this, who feels that? But that particular year, which I don't remember the year it was, I felt enormous pressure and strain on two different camps wanting two different things.
Interesting.
There was something else, Andrew, that used to happen back in the 70s that I don't think happened any after AIDS and all that, and when disco died. And that's that the songs were broken in the clubs in those days. It wasn't what the popular song on the radio that people played in the clubs. It was the other way around. The promoters were in the DJ booth, and when the dance floor filled up, that was the record that went on the air. You know. We'd had Jacques Morali in the booth. I mean, the people, you know, you'd have Henry Bololo. You have everybody was there. I mean, everybody was there doing this in those days, including David Geffen, who was in those days.
If I could add, Bob, if I could add something, I was a record promoter back in the 70s, and that's how I made my bread and butter. I carried records from club to all the top DJs during the week in the city. And on Saturday morning after being at 12 West Friday night, I'd hop a seaplane and go to the island and do the same thing there. So you are absolutely spot on.
The records were the thing I remember about the DJs is the lugging. I always felt, oh my God, the DJs, and every DJ had to have an assistant or an entourage actually to take those cases of 12-inch singles up to the booth.
And they were heavy.
They were heavy. I can tell you they were heavy when I used to carry Robbies. Then I didn't have, once I became me, I didn't have to carry Robbies.
Michael was my entourage. There you have it.
There you go.
And I weighed nothing. But yeah, I mean, it's true. But you know.
So go ahead, Michael.
No, I mean, it's just one of those things. The flipping through those records in that particular booth or the Saint just had a certain the whole elegance of it was like going through a catalog or manuscripts and turning pages to see what you wanted. And we all had our ways of organizing our records. It's, I mean, off topic, I suppose, but I'm glad that I certainly played when I did. And even though I did talk John White into buying that Denon CD thing, because I thought the Pavilion should have one, I never really liked it. I never liked playing CDs.
Okay.
I don't think you have as much control. The DJs do not have as much control as they had.
Well, not
with
them.
And queuing up. I mean, come on, it was so wonderful to watch the queuing up and the spinning, and where it's going to start, and you guys. I mean, it was an art form that's gone now. To be honest with you, it's really just an assemblage of songs that work together, but not the mixing was something that's an era that doesn't happen anymore. It doesn't happen.
Okay, so I'd like to move this forward if I can. So 2006, 2007, the Pavilion is torn down, and the place was basically sinking into the ground. And Eric Von Kirshner and Tony Roncalli had bought the place, and this is something I only knew tangentially. I wasn't involved that closely, but as a fan, I remember you all kind of just disappeared. And I didn't see a lot of you playing. And was there just kind of a conscious decision that was then, and you guys are, out on the street, or what happened then?
Maybe Todd can answer.
Todd can answer that more than
I know for me, we had a disagreement, and he basically fired me from the Pavilion. So, what he did with everybody else, I'm not sure what his vision is, but Todd, I'm sure you can shed some light on that.
Yeah. Todd, you're on. Good luck.
Who's Todd?
Todd Fury, just those who don't know him, Todd Fury.
I am muted, Todd.
Todd. I love Todd. Let's give a big shout out to Todd.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come on, listen to the stream.
Todd?
Hi, I'm here.
There's Mr.
So Todd was the entertainment director under Eric and Tony, and then came to work for us when we bought the place. So Todd, tell us about the beginning of the Pavilion 2 and the kind of the direction that it went in.
Sure. So actually, I was there for the original Pavilion. I just worked for PJ at the time, which I don't know if everybody knows. I think I've worked for every owner except John White and before John. I came on to Eric's group the second year, which was when the new Pavilion was there, and obviously there was a lot of mixed emotions, I would say, in the Pines, similar to the disco transition we were talking to. I think there was, a lot of different feelings about the new Pavilion. I'm not sure it could ever have matched the original, which I personally loved. There was just something about that iconic booths with the record players and all of that. But it was
the Timex clock. Don't forget that Timex, which was in there for 10 The fact that was not saved is a crime against it. Go on.
But yeah, Eric had a very different idea about, I think Eric's biggest thing, and to his credit, was that what he was so focused on was that he was really nervous that younger people weren't going to come in with that same love, right? And he wanted to introduce some of the younger people in the community. And, I've always wanted to find that balance, right? Because for me personally, I was always interested in the history of it. It had just such an amazing history, and the music and the DJs. And so for me, I think that, I came in a year, and Adam Weaver, I believe, is on here as well. We both started at the same time, and we both had very different visions about what the programming should be in the Pines. And in the beginning, we clashed quite a bit, and we've talked about this in the beginning, and what I think Adam really had a vision for how to grab some younger people and get them to come to the island and experience that whole, time tradition of going to tea, taking a break, coming back out to the Pavilion and getting into that mode again. And I think in the end we came, we learned a lot. But Eric I think wanted to go in a very new direction, and so, but he had people like me on staff that were saying, wait, we can have both, right? We can get the younger crowd and some of the people that have been going for a long time, and I think we did that.
To your credit, it did happen. It was the beginning of a resurgence of the Pines, Todd. Absolutely. I mean, I credit Eric and you with that.
Yes, I second that.
I do too.
I second that. I just want to interject here. Yes, many people, as anybody in charge in the Pines, everybody always has something to say. But kudos to Eric. Eric had a vision of bringing young people back to the Pines, and I will give him that. He did it. He brought a generation of people that thought it was old school, and he changed a lot of the culture there. And I remember it. I was part of it. So just want to throw that in there.
It was a good beginning. It was kind of, the banner was taken up by Share Girl and continues to this day. I mean, that's kind of like the youth future of the Pines. The other thing that Eric did, of course, was to be so hands-on. Unfortunately, I mean, the Pavilion, everybody, I think, widely agrees, and Eric probably agrees too, that the architecture of the Pavilion 2 did not work. The second supermarket was a slap in the face. Nobody needed it, nobody wanted it. And the vegetables were cooked by 10 o'clock in the morning because they sat in an east-facing window that nobody thought about before they put the vegetables in there. And that was that. It was the most underutilized piece of real estate in the world. It was open one day a week and nobody went.
Right, and Eric and Tony were smart enough, smart enough in a financial sense at least, to realize that there was a potential to put retail space in the Pavilion building, and from an economic point of view, that made a lot of sense. That's a big footprint there, but the space itself was very unloved, and I thought was really undeveloped. And so when we bought the building, when Seth Weissman and Matt Lesser and I bought the building, I didn't think it needed like a huge fix to become a much better dance space. I mean, the acoustics we had an easy fix. We just brought, it was like a very kind of echoey, I think Alan Flippin said, just sent a note saying it was referred to as a squash court. There was just a major echo in that room.
It was a box.
We just brought the speakers out, and that's kind of nailed that. And Guy Smith, we hired Guy Smith when we took over Pavilion 2. And I said to him, first of all, it needed some circulation. So we built a staircase, and that kind of really helped with circulation. But I said we needed kind of like a holy shit feature. And so, first thing he wanted to do was some kind of little lighting device, and I thought that was a little too modest. And I said, think bigger. And so we erected this big kind of video screens that wrapped around the place. And Rob, his husband, did these incredible videos, and that was a heyday of middle T, which a lot of tourists hate. I didn't, I wish that everyone were dancing at night, but whatever. We inherited middle T, and then that turned out to be quite an electric scene. I mean, I was really actually proud of that room. Todd, tell me about like middle T versus kind of late night dancing at Pavilion 2.
Yeah, so I have to say, when I did not know about these video projections from that Marsha was talking about, so that's pretty incredible, because I think that's one thing that you really added to that room, Andrew, was that those video screens at Middle T were just incredible. And even at the Pavilion, I think it just added something that room, and Ron, I saw you posting about that, and I agree. It was very racquetball court set up, that, the big square, but it did. I think what was important was they wanted to keep that height of the ceiling in there, which I just, when I think of Pavilion, I think of that, that DJ booth being on that second level. But Middle T, I mean, is something that took on a life of its own with Vito in that room.
Right.
And I know it's a contentious subject. A lot of people, there's the lovers and the haters of it, but at the bottom line, I mean, it was absolutely wall packed every week, to his credit. It was
Fridays and Sundays. It was just really, it was an institution. I mean, it killed late night dancing, but it was something else that kind of, it was organic, and it grew, and it became like a thing. And, one one little known factoid is when Seth and Matt and I bought properties, that the Pavilion was slated to become a grocery store. I mean, that was if we hadn't bought the properties, the Pavilion would have died. They had literally going to expand the market into the Pavilion space. I mean, it wasn't a secret that the Pavilion was not making a lot of money. So again, Eric, I think, who saw things much more through an economic prism, thought, well, this is ridiculous. I've got this huge space. Like, let's make money from a supermarket.
Was the market making money? I don't think the market was making money, was it?
No, they didn't make money.
No, I mean, I think it was considered like the place not to go. It was like a politically incorrect place to shop. It was like buying Barilla pasta. You know, I mean, you don't do it. Right. You know, going to Chick-fil-A, you didn't do it.
Good analogy, Bob.
Andrew, if I could just add here 2 comments. One is from Ron Bloom. He says there was no sense of discovery as there was as the old Pavilion. And in conversation with Vito, he used to say the same thing to me. There were no corners and dark spots for people to, do what they did. I remember it very fondly. I remember Todd, of course. I was a big part of Middle T, and and it was packed beyond packed. So there was not a corner to be had.
And Vito was brilliant. I mean, Vito was brilliant.
Incredible.
He really.
To be fair, the original dance floor in the original building was the largest dance floor space that ever occurred in that building. Every renovation that was done post 1980 shrunk the dance floor and increased other spaces in the room.
Right. I agree with that.
Okay.
Andrew, I wanted to mention some things too. I had the opportunity to work in all 3 spaces, and 3 totally different things going on in each one of them. Certainly, when I was asked to work there, and I actually got the job because John had heard that I was doing things at the Ice Palace. I had worked 3 seasons at the Ice Palace, and I installed a digital lighting system, and we would have the invasion of the Grove. It was like a reverse invasion. The boys would come on that particular Saturday night and then fill up the Ice Palace and pack it out. And that was the one night it wasn't busy, and John wasn't too thrilled with that. And that continued to get bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, the last one was off the hook. And I ended at the end of this season. I went to John. I met him at his usual spot at the Blue Whale, and he had said, I was waiting for you to show up. And we met later on that winter, and we discussed coming to work there. I didn't really know about the situations that were going on until I started my first year, but I know there were a lot of DJs that were very happy that I was there because of everything that was going on with Michael. And I was glad to be there because I was able to install this new lighting system. But, I also was just so enamored by the fact that I was going to be now working along some of the best DJs in the world. And that just blew me away.
And we loved working with you, honey.
Yeah, and let me tell you, especially my first night working with Michael, I was a little nervous. But the minute I started working, especially with Michael, and I've worked great with Susan too, but we just gelled. I mean, I knew his throwing, when he was ready to throw a transition in, and I was ready to work it. And it was just wonderful. That marriage of analog and digital lighting worked so well during that period. And I can't begin to tell you how well the music was during that period. The music during the 3 seasons I worked there from 97, 98, and 96 were just incredible. I mean, we had such a blend of soulful house, disco, trance, great down-tempo music. I mean, it was all there for the taking. So it was just, to me, it was like the golden era of the time that I knew. When we made the transition to the new space, it was nice. It was still a high ceiling, and it was kind of like the booth, but like Marcia said, the dance floor kind of got shrunk. It was different. I did love the video. I thought the video was kind of catching on, and I was really getting into the video and using the video with the lighting, and I think it was starting to really catch fire. And I would have loved that, and unfortunately, then we lost it. This incarnation. Totally different experience, but we haven't gotten to that for that yet. But it certainly was just a joy to work with everyone, and I'm certainly so excited to see everybody here today.
That's great. And then, of course, the whole place went up in flames.
Right. Yeah.
And
Up
there
in
was-
flames. Yep.
Oh.
And then we had the new incarnation, which is, you know, it's a whole different scene. I think what's going on right now, and there are some good parties that are going on. Susan's Labor Day, Abel's morning party. They're kind of bringing back that vibe. There's some good Peter Napoli, Occupy. They're kind of bringing that vibe back, but it's struggling, you know. But it's slowly getting there. Of course, now with this pause and what's going on, I don't know what we're going to aim for, but it certainly felt like, you know, when I was working for some of these younger people, that I felt that vibe. I mean, believe me, everybody absolutely adores this space more than anything. Even I put a quote up on the video that Larry Kramer did speak about it. I mean, it was such a revered space for so many people for so many years. So
Right. Fair enough. Do we want to? I have a conflict of interest here, having built the last building, and I can tell stories about kind of what led to kind of the current design, which is, you know, it's controversial, not as successful as the first building, without question. But it's kind of nice that it's finally kind of slowly achieving an identity, which took a great long time. Any other comments about the new building before we move on?
I will say that the exterior is absolutely stunning.
stunning.
The exterior.
The exterior.
I'll agree with Michael on that.
Well, I mean, let's be honest.
I
No,
think the
I agree.
interior is stunning too. However, it's not functional as a space. There's
No.
Well, okay.
big flow on the dance floor,
Right.
and there's the DJ booth is way too small.
Wait,
The flow is the biggest problem. There just isn't any flow. So
The
you
flow is the
can't-
problem.
It's hard to find a spot without being other people being invasive of your space.
Right. There were enormous impediments that happened in the fire that kind of led to the current design. I mean, the positive is that the exterior is absolutely beautiful. I mean, it's a beautiful building. The Fire Island National Seashore opposed rebuilding the pavilion, and it was a huge hurdle to get over. The preservationists here on the island fought it tooth and nail, and finally we got approval, but they cut 25% of our square footage away, which caused, like, as you might imagine, like innumerable design challenges. And then I can go on and on. There were so many things that kind of changed when that building burned down. I mean, the Botel, another example, is a 3-story building. We thought about tearing it down and rebuilding it, and they only let us build 1 story. And things were kind of grandfathered in that we took for granted, that we had to kind of deal with suddenly, and it kind of tied our hands. That dance floor, you know, would I rather dance on that dance floor or the original dance floor? I mean, there's no question. I'd much rather dance in the original pavilion. I'd like to see it kind of assuming a new personality, and I think PJ has found a lot of interesting new uses for it as an entertainment space. But you know, it is what it is, and people have very, very, very valid opinions about the place.
You know, Andrew, I'm really glad you did it. You know, I don't want to sound critical. It's still, for me, one of the most magical places I play all year. It still is Fire Island. It still is the Pavilion. And I've had amazing times, both as a dancer and as a DJ in Pavilion number 3. It still has that magic because it's Fire Island. It's part of our community. So, you know, it has a thing going on. And I think PJ, you know, last year has definitely found a groove with it. You know, there's definitely nights that have been full. My nights have been full. The Able night has been full. Occupy the Disco does really well there. Peter Napoli does really well there. And not for nothing, if he didn't have a free space next door, it probably would do even better.
Right, but also in defense of Andrew, the culture changed also. The culture had changed in the Pines after the fire. And so, you know, the use of the space to me, it took on a different thing, and it's still finding its way.
Yeah, there's no, it's still finding its way. I wanted to open this up to the floor. Are there people who'd like to ask some questions?
Can I just say one thing, because we didn't get into it, Andrew, is that does everyone have any memories that you maybe want to share about Buck? Because we really never spoke about that at all. And there are so many Buck stories, but I want to hear that if anybody wants to share.
Well, you start.
I mean, mine had just did, so my favorite night working with Buck was the night that actually you and Buck played together. It was prior to Junior playing the night before. That was going to be playing the next night. So it was it was just an amazing evening.
I'll tell you a good Buck story. Speaking of that, when Buck first came to the island, like 93-ish, he played, it was a house party in somewhere. Yep. And he said to me, and we hadn't become close yet, and we became so close, but he said to me, I'm gonna steal a song from you, and then I'm gonna close with a song as an homage to you. But I'm not gonna tell you what song I'm gonna steal. But he said, you'll know it when you hear it. And it was The Way It Is by Bruce Hornsby. And he did close with Anticipation, and because he had heard me play that, and he associated with me. And I get a chill right now just really thinking about that. I mean, that just shows the warmth of his personality, and just how he was all about sharing. I mean, I know that in those 90s years, it was me, Buck, and Susan, and people loved Susan and people loved me, but they really, as far as a person, I mean, I think we'd all agree Buck is probably one of those beloved people any of us have ever met. And you felt that on the dance floor, on his dance floor. You felt it when he called you up insisting that you try a particular flavor pudding. Anything. Yeah. He had equal excitement about every aspect of his life. And I think that showed to everybody, especially just the people on the floor that maybe were not his friends, but I think probably everybody felt like they were his friend. And I can't say that everyone probably felt like they were not friends.
I think,
Michael, you don't give yourself enough credit. You and Susan. And
everyone was amazing.
You're all beloved, believe me. And
I'm not saying that we weren't, but Susan, am I right? Buck had a thing, right?
Yeah. Yes, you're right, Mickey.
I mean, come on.
Yep. I mean, what I find that, I listen to his old work and I try to Shazam the music he played so I know what the heck it is. You know how many times I get no results because he would dig up stuff that nobody else. I'm like, where did he get this stuff? He had such a love to find and a passion to get the music that nobody else had. I mean, we always all did. But you still can't, I don't even know. It's just so many titles that don't always say no results. That's typical of Buck, that's for sure.
If I could add just one little thing. When I worked with Buck in many different places around the country, just when we were doing the loop, so to speak, and there was something so unique about him. He was totally devoid of ego. He was an absolute buddy to everybody, and he had no sense of his greatness, and he was just so eminently lovable, and I mean, when he was on the beach, when he was physically on the island, there was just, people felt better. I mean, he just had this wonderful vibe about him, and I never felt threatened. I never felt challenged. I never felt that he was that he had any kind of attitude whatsoever. He was just an absolute 100% love.
Yeah, right. He wanted to share. Absolutely.
He would give you records. he would give me records. Even he knew I DJ'd, and he even paid me a compliment once, and I was so floored by that when I met him at the boat one time from World Day, and he would give me records all the time. He shared music all the time with everyone.
Yeah.
Well, imagine that he passed away 2 decades ago. That people are still talking about him.
Every New Year's Eve.
And you
Every
can
New
use-
Year's Eve.
Yep,
So much
you can hear his music.
on
So
this.
it's timeless.
That's quite a tribute. And I guess we should not
And we should talk about Warren now.
Warren too.
That's what I'm
Absolutely.
about to say. We should not let the moment pass without
No.
acknowledging the passing of Warren Block. It was another giant. Would anyone like to say anything about Warren?
I can mention something real quick because, you know, I know when I came there, for some reason Warren had a falling out with John, and I begged him to get Warren to come back. You know, I think it's because he wanted to do tea, and he didn't want to really do tea. He wanted to work at the Pavilion. So for whatever reason, he did finally get him. He did come back, and Warren was very appreciative that I tried to get him back in, and I was very happy to do it because we were friends for many years prior to that. I met him back in 1980, working at the Monster. We ended up doing a Studio 54 party that was incredible because John finally let me use smoke. It was the only time we were allowed to use the smoke machine. He played Relight My Fire. They went off the hook. It's one of those moments, along with Michael's 40th birthday, that just took my breath away with the energy that came. Oh, Michael, that night was just off the hook. When they put those,
the glow
they
stick.
started
We'll
with
get to
that. Yeah. But
Let's
I mean,
stick with
Warren was definitely a major influence for me when I met him, and I was so glad to see he was back at the Pavilion again. I know he loved being back in the Pines and being back on Fire Island. I was glad I was able to.
Well said, Michael. Tom Ford and Prescott would like to say something. Would you mind turning on?
And before they do, I feel like I'm watching Hollywood Squares, and their square is the only one with 2 people, and it's like, I can't remember, like Siegfried and Roy or something, when there's 2 personalities in one square. So I salute you.
There you go, Tom's on. They're on.
Tom
Go ahead,
Ford.
Tom and Prescott. You guys are on.
No, not yet. They're muted.
They're still, I am muted.
I don't see them.
Yeah, they're here. Ask Tom mute. Guys, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Okay. Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hi. We
there you are.
Came to today's Pavilion celebration directly from Warren's viewing. So Warren's viewing was this afternoon. So it was very limited, 10 people at a time. So it was family, and there were 4 friends with the family. Tom and I were blessed to be part of that intimate group. And so I find it incredibly meaningful that on today, the day we say goodbye to Warren, physically at least, is the celebration of the Pavilion's anniversary. So I take great meaning to that. I did want to mention also that we are planning a memorial for Warren on Saturday, September 19th in Fire Island, and we'll put out more details on that as it gets a little bit more flushed through. But thank you, everyone.
Sure.
Guys, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, we're nearing the 90-minute mark here. Can we get a question or two before we wrap up here? Does anyone have a question for the stars of this show? James, talk to us, James. I'm sorry, I know James, but I can't pronounce his last name. Husing.
Anybody now can unmute themselves if they have to. So I've allowed it to. You can unmute your own microphone if you want.
James,
Houston, you got it. That was great.
Hi, James.
Well, hi, everyone. First of all, thank you so much for doing this. I know you guys mentioned even though the Pavilion 3 is a little different and it's still finding its way, I had like the exact same magical experiences that you guys described of this sort of fear turning into fascination, turning into warmth. So thank you all so much for being such wonderful stewards of a place that still means everything to me. I really love it, having just arrived only 2 years ago. So you guys are doing a fantastic job.
That's very sweet.
My question is this. The Pavilion has endured so much before, and now in the face of a public health crisis, I want to go dance right now. But what is the healthy, responsible way to react to this? Do we stay home? Do we write off the summer? Do we go back when the city reopens? You know, how do we balance our desire to go back out and to continue making this place what it is, with being responsible and respectful?
Well, you've already been through that, haven't you?
I don't know whether anyone has a good answer. Does anyone have an answer to that very, very good question?
James,
Randy Bettis knows.
are you asking if it's okay to go out to the island?
More so, what's
question
the plan for making life normal again in the Pavilion?
Oh, there's no plan for that right now.
Yeah, I think they just have to see. You know, I think that in time, little by little, the governor's going to let people gather,
Right.
but it's going to be in small numbers.
Right.
So by the time it reaches 200 people, what are the parameters of 200 people? You know, are you going to have to wear a mask? How large does the place have to be? You know, all of that we don't know. So I think it's just so hard to tell what's going to happen with the Pavilion.
Yeah.
Offers kill COVID-19.
Yeah. I think it's much more likely that you'll see outdoor events this summer, some form of outdoor tea, than you will see the Pavilion this summer.
Yeah, Alan, I think that's absolutely the way it's going to be. And this is a great place to be outdoors. We're lucky we have it.
Yes.
And we have a new big beach.
A huge beach.
Wow.
Dance stand.
Are we talking about a widened beach?
Oh, yeah, we have new dune, Robbie. We have new dune grass. It looks really great. It looks wonderful.
Wow, fantastic.
Oh, it's extraordinary, Robbie.
You can see it right behind Andrew.
I think it's
Oh, yes.
Andrew, the waves are not moving and that behind you. What is that? It's so strange. What is that you're in front of there? It's not
That is a still shot I shot of the beach behind my house.
But are you on blue? Are you on a green screen? How do you do this?
It's
Bob,
Bob.
And Bobby Banana, you're another one. You're not there. I know you're not.
Look at Michael.
205 Pine, everyone.
Yes.
It's called a background.
Michael,
There's a way to do
Michael,
it.
that's the house.
You have a green screen? You have a green screen back there?
No, I'm at 205 Pine. It's 9.
Who else has a question?
What, Michael, is that the house on Pine Walk that you rented? What is that?
Pine. 205 Pine.
205.
Why don't we take one more question? I think Ron Bloom had one.
Did you got the DJs have any idea how excited we were getting when you guys introduced a new song? I mean, people were levitating off the floor. And I don't know if you were concentrating on the next number but we were it was just an amazing experience that I'll never forget.
Here's the one about
did you guys get it?
Oh, let me just say this, and then I'll move it on to everyone else. The wonderful thing about Pavilion was that it was a distillation of the New York City crowd. So it was a very manageable, smaller group. It wasn't 2,000 like it was at the Saint. It's like 500 perhaps, and everyone really was intimately familiar with each other, and it was very much more of a tribe. So when we were introducing new music and you got that click with the crowd, I mean, there was no doubt about it, and it would be talked about on the way home and at breakfast the next morning. And it was a wonderful thing, and that's part of the beauty of the Sandpiper and the Pavilion is when new music was thrilling and just it made that impact. So everyone else.
Well
If I
said.
could please add a closing remark on my end here.
Feel free.
I was there when the original guys were planning this dream of how could we have a club that was made by us and for us on our island. And here I am sitting with you all 40 years after that. And it brings me to tears that these men are not around to see what a fabulous creation they made. How wonderful that they gave us a place that we could turn into something that we made hours, and to sit here today and commiserate with all of us, not over a day, a week, or a month, over literally decades of change. And the one thing that has been constant throughout all of that is our love and our continuity to each other. And words fail when saying what a wonderful, wonderful thing that is. These guys, these angels in heaven, I hope they're all looking down. I know they're smiling. What a wonderful gift they gave us in the Pines, didn't they?
Beautiful. That's
Beautiful.
That's a beautiful note to conclude on. Thank you all.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Thank you all. Bobby Bonanno. Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Thank you, Bobby.
Bobby, Mike,
Everybody,
and Andrew.
thank you, everybody, for coming, sharing your memories. Marsha, it was incredible. You gave so much information. It was so great. And thank you so much.
Thank you for allowing me, Bobby, and thank you for organizing this.
It was
This
awesome.
worked well, very nice.
And please know that this is our oral history. We're recording this, and we're going to have it for posterity. And this is what we're about.
Is this available online, Bobby? How does one listen? How does one find this recording? Is it on the site? Will it be on the site?
It will be on the site. It will be on the site. Yes.
Great. Okay. Cool. Very nice. Thank you, Bobby. It was great.
Thank you, everybody.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bobby, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And let's have a great summer as much as we can.
Cool.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Good night, everybody.